Hi everyone. In this CLO video, we're going to be talking about how to apply quilting to our garments. So I have this jacket pattern right here in my CLO window. This is just adapted from the t-shirt file that's already in your library. I just added that to my workspace and then updated it to be this zip-up jacket. So that's what we're going to be applying quilting to the body and to the sleeves. And I'm going to show you two different methods. The first one is for very consistent quilting lines, so quilting lines that are equal distance apart and also that extend to the edge of our pattern. And then the other method is going to be for more organic quilting lines, maybe that aren't consistent or uniform and that maybe don't extend to the edge of our pattern outline. So the first part for those uniform quilting lines that are consistent, we're going to be using the fill tool. And so how we start out is we first need to add internal lines onto our pattern that are going to become our quilting lines. So to do that, the easiest way is to first just offset our pattern outline as an internal line. So I'm going to do that by clicking on the Edit Pattern tool here in our 2D toolbar. And for our front jacket, I'm just going to right click on the center front because that is a straight vertical line, so that will offset really cleanly across my pattern. So I'm going to right click on that and choose offset as internal line. And I get this pop-up menu right here where I can choose the number of offsets and the distance. The first thing that we want to do is to set the distance we want our quilting lines to be. So you could play around with this and see like what looks good. I'll do 2 inches for this. And then we want to change the number of offsets to extend all the way across our pattern. And then I'll choose OK. But first, you also do want to make sure you have extend selected because you can see this line right here is shorter than some of my other internal lines that are being created. So if I didn't have extend checked, it would only create the internal line the same exact length as my original. But I do want it extended all the way to the edge of my pattern. So I'll click OK. And those are applied. I don't have linked editing applied on this jacket right now, so I'll just need to do the same thing on the other side. Right click, offset as internal line. It keeps my settings, so then I just click OK, and that's done. For this one, I think I would like to do the quilting as like a checkered pattern. So I'm also going to offset it based off the hem too, so that I get internal lines going both directions. So I'll right click again, offset as internal line. I want to keep it 2 inches, but I will need to add some more offsets to get it to the top of my jacket. So I'm just going to keep adding that there. And now that's all the way to the top. So I'll click OK and do the same thing on this side. Offset as internal line, keeps my settings, so then OK. Then I'm going to do the same thing on my sleeve, adding that checkered design. But for this one, because I don't have a straight vertical or horizontal edge of my pattern, it wouldn't be as clean, or I wouldn't get the look that I'm going after if I offset based on the pattern edge, because that would offset these lines at that angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm first just going to create that straight vertical and horizontal internal line for myself by using the internal line tool right here in our 2D toolbar. And you can either click on the edge of the pattern and then click at the bottom to create it the exact same length as your sleeve. But sometimes I've noticed that it tries to lock into place if you don't have your lock guides set up for a different setting. My lock guides are set up to try to lock at the grid spots. And if your lock guides are set up the same way, then you might notice your mouse tries to jump down to that grid versus the edge of the pattern. And so sometimes I will just right click with my shift guide on, making sure that it's straight and vertical, double click to finish the line. And I'll link to another video with more information about internal lines here. But I just created that internal line, not all the way extending. And then I'm going to go to my Edit Pattern tool and right click and extend/trim to pattern outline. Not doing extend/trim and add point because I don't want a point there. And now it's exactly at the pattern outline versus being a little further or a little inside. And I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to do offset as internal line again. But this time, because it's in the center of our sleeve pattern, I can actually choose both directions or both sides right here. That way I don't have to go in and do it twice. And I'm just gonna reduce the number of offsets so that it's right where we need it to be. This one's like really close to the edge, so you could keep it or leave it, but I'll just leave it. And I wanna make sure that I have 2 inches as my distance also. So then I'll click OK. And I'm just gonna do the same thing for a horizontal one. Not going quite to the edge of the pattern just so that I don't accidentally go over it. But you could go over it and then you could always extend/trim to pattern outline. It would trim it too. This is just the way that I prefer to do it, but if you don't have any problem clicking right on the edge of that pattern, then you can skip that part. So then I'll right click, offset as internal line. This time I'm not going to do both sides since I did place it closer to the bottom. Add my number of offsets till I get to the top and choose OK. Now my sleeves are linked, so did it on the other side too. And then I'm just going to apply it to the back also. One thing I could do is I could do the same method I did on my front, but just to show you something different. If you're in the Edit Pattern tool and you double click on an internal line in a pattern, it will select that line. But if you double click again, it will select all the internal lines in that pattern. So I'm going to click Command Copy to copy those, Command V to paste, and just paste these inside my back pattern. And then I could right click, extend/trim to pattern outline, and that extends and trims them. And then I would still need to go in and offset as internal line the other direction for these, reverse direction, there we go. And so clearly this isn't the fastest way to do this, but just to show you a different technique since we had already done the other one twice. Offset as internal line. Just need 2 over there, okay. And then this one right here, I'm going to extend/trim to pattern outline. There we go. So now we have our internal lines all on our pattern where we want the quilting to be. And so the next thing that we need to do is I'm going to go into the fill tool in our 2D toolbar. It's right here, it looks like this puffer vest, and I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to click on the patterns that I want to fill with quilting. So I'm going to click on it and then it attaches to my mouse and I will just click below that pattern in my 2D window to place it. Keeping them pretty close to where they originally are. That way it's really easy to edit them together if we ever needed to. But just going through those patterns. And once those are all pasted, then I'm going to open up our property editor. And with any of these patterns selected, you can see I can select one pattern and I get some options up here in the property editor. I can do that, or I can select all of them. These are linked, so you don't need to select the top and bottom. It will automatically edit them together, but you can select the top and bottom. So I'm just going to select all of them right now. We have the option to adjust the fill. So some options here in our drop down based on what kind of filling you want. And then we're going to need to apply a weight to our filling. This is going to be distributed among everything we have selected. So for example, if I wanted each piece to have a weight of 100 grams, for example, I would need to either select this and type in 100, or I would need to do some math and select all of them, and it would be 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. It's going to distribute it between all the pieces. So if I typed in 500 while I have them all selected, then I go in, I select one of them, and you can see it distributed it based on the size of the pattern. So it's, if you want a piece to have an exact weight, then you could type it in, or if you have a weight overall that you want it to be, then you can type that in and it will automatically distribute it. But I'm going to select them all again, And then our quilting distance we did for everything is 2 inches. So I'm just gonna type that in there. And then I will close our property editor so we have some more room, and I'm gonna turn on simulation so that we can see this. And you can see that quilting is now applied to my whole garment. There was also the option to do a realistic quilting line, which we can apply that also if we wanted to. That will give some like puckering and texture to our quilting lines right there. So I'll turn that on. And we'll also be able to see more of the details, and it will look more realistic when we switch into high resolution mode. So I'm gonna do that also. And so if you want more information on switching to high resolution mode, I will link that here too. I do a whole video on that. But to do that, to switch into that mode easily, you just click the high res button here in our 3D toolbar. So as that's loading, I will turn on simulation mode. So we'll get to see those changes. And it will take a second to simulate. When you have more internal lines in a file, it is going to get bigger. So we have a lot of internal lines here. So our file is going to get slow. So you definitely don't want to switch into high res mode too soon because that really will slow you down. But you can see as it's loading, it's looking more realistic. And you can always switch into low res mode and go edit the weight or any of your internal lines or anything like that. If you're having any problems with simulation, like everything looks good to me here, but if you're noticing some of your quilting lines are disappearing, you might just want to rearrange your pattern. So kind of like what's happening right here. You just want to double check your pattern, but what I would do is, if it will load for me, I'm going to switch back into low res mode since it's going so slow. What I would do is I'm going to click on the pattern that I want to fix, and I'm just going to use the gizmo tool to bring it forward so that the front layer is forward, because what's happening there is the back layer is getting mixed up with the front layer since we do have 2 layers of fabric right here. And then you'll resimulate and that will typically fix it. Another solution is to lower the particle distance of that specific piece even more, and that will help with simulation too. But in the next video, we're going to go over that other method of quilting, which is the more organic quilting lines, the ones that aren't uniform and that maybe don't extend to the edge of the pattern. Thank you.